The story of popular movements for social change has long been dominated by organized labor and the civil rights movement. But in the 21st century, the push for social change requires new kinds of connection, leadership, and strategy, in many cases with a greater role for women. The potential for change through new forms of organizing is being explored in a series of conversations at Boston area colleges. We'd like to welcome two of the participants, the activist founder of Midwest Academy, Heather Booth, and the executive director of the Chelsea Collaborative, Gretas Journey. Thank you both for being with us.
Good to see you, Chris.
I want to start with Heather. Talk about this historical arc here, because you got your academy started at the end of one era and the beginning of another. And take me back to the beginning, because it looked like almost a bleak time, didn't it?
Well, I started organizing when I was a young teenager. I'm now 73. You can do this for an entire life. I came into organizing through the civil rights movement. In 1960, I was in support of demonstrations at Woolworths, which wouldn't allow African Americans to sit at their lunch counters in the South. I went to Mississippi in the Freedom Summer Project in 1964, where Northern students were recruited to support Black organizing in Mississippi. And because people organized, within a year, there was a Voting Rights Act. And so the message that if you organize, you can change the world is a message I think needs to get conveyed to others. I then continued organizing, and with a back pay suit I won when I was doing some union organizing, I started a training center called Midwest Academy. And it's still going strong and trains people from thousands of kinds of organizations, from women's groups and Planned Parenthood or NAACP to little groups whose names people wouldn't know generally. And in addition to that, we've continued organizing on a variety of issues: healthcare, prescription drug prices, the tax policy, many things that impact people in Boston and around the country. And a student at Tufts, Wiley Chang, decided it would be interesting to create conversations about this in the Boston area, and a book will come out of it. And so we were just at one conversation at Tufts, there'll be one at Brown, and then one at Harvard, and then also in other places around the country.
Gretas Journey, Chelsea Collaborative works with many immigrants. You're an inspiration to many groups here in Boston. But when it comes to social change, I guess one example is, your own life, your own progress in leadership. Talk about that.
So I grew up in the city of Chelsea. I grew up in a city where we had no access to decision-making process. But we felt that by organizing the community, we had a chance to be at the table. So whether the people that were moving into Chelsea in the early 80s were documented, undocumented, whether they knew English or not, we got them involved in the community because we wanted them to have them be, have it ownership of their city. We want them that if it didn't matter if they were going to be in the city of Chelsea for 1 year, 5 years, or for the long haul, that we wanted for that period of time for them to be civically engaged. So for us to build a leadership membership in the community of people that were police officers, of people that became teachers, of young people that were becoming fire department officers in a community where basically Latinos didn't have a role, and immigrants. Nevertheless, we got them involved, engaged, and we are part now of the fabric of the community. We have done so many changes in our community, and our community, it's a community of vibrant people willing to be organized, willing to participate, willing to be civically engaged. They're running for political office. They're winning campaigns. They're sitting at the table and making decisions for the future of their families, and that is unique. And that doesn't happen over time. It happens when there's a group of, a small group of leaders that are creating a path and a way to organize that it works, and that when we see an injustice, we call it, and we're not afraid to do so. But we also feel that we're able to sort of like communicate in a way that that addresses the issue that people don't want to talk about. So we have no problem. We came from a broken community. As you know, the city of Chelsea went into state receivership. We were the first city in the nation to be into our state receivership. Our 4 mayors were indicted, 2 of them on house arrest. So we had corruption in our city of Chelsea. Today, our city, it's an amazing place to be. It's a city that has a government that responds to the people of Chelsea. It has a police department that is so diverse and so unique in so many ways. It's a police department that when you call them, you don't have to be afraid that they're going to come with immigration. If you're undocumented, you cannot call them. I mean, it's a very responsive community, and that is because of the work that we have done together. And we didn't care whether you knew Spanish, whether you were documented or undocumented. All we care about that for the little time that you were going to be in the city of Chelsea, get engaged, clean your neighborhood, care about the community for the little time that you were going to be there. And if it was to build the community, build it together, but care about it because we needed to own it. And that's the pride that we have in Chelsea. And things are not perfect, but we know that we have a group of people that work very hard day in and day out to make it better every day. And we take pride of that.
Inspiring story.
Yes.
Heather, a lot has changed since the 1970s. We don't have the industrial economy anymore. We're a lot more fragmented. So how did you get people to get involved in an organization? They're busy, they're working hard. How do you make them feel it's worth their time?
There's so many things that spark action, but this is a moment where there's more inspiration of organized turnout and movement and resistance than there's been in years. I actually think more people are organizing now than organized in the 60s in terms of absolute numbers. Sometimes the opposition organizes for us, so that there are people who were so shocked by some of the policies that are happening in the country, that they're tax giveaways for the millionaires and billionaires and not for the rest of us, that there's a mean-spiritedness in politics so that people are being demonized and attacked, and people who should be our brothers and sisters that we want to welcome in instead are being penalized. And people saying this isn't right, that they want to take away health care that even would take away health care for people with pre-existing conditions. You say, we have to stop this. And so on all the different issues, people were ready to stand up. And what organizers do is both encourage that, to stand up, and to find each other so that we can connect together and so that the whole becomes more than the sum of our parts.
Gladys, in Chelsea, one of the things you have to deal with is the new climate around immigration enforcement, and the local police are an important part of the equation, even though they're not part of the enforcement, strictly speaking, but they can be part of the problem if things don't happen right. How did you deal with that in Chelsea?
So first we have 2007, we created Chelsea. We made Chelsea a sanctuary city. We have an incredible chief. Our chief is the president of the Association of Chiefs for Massachusetts, for the Police Association. He comes from Chelsea. I think that what has been very unique about Chelsea is that many of the people that grew up in Chelsea, they remain in Chelsea. So they have seen the transformation of the newcomers buying homes and going through the school system, and we have built relationships. I mean, it's not like we have so many outsiders per se. The people that built Chelsea are sort of like a group of people that took pride and remained there. So I think in terms of immigration, we have a relationship where in the city of Chelsea, ICE doesn't have a role. We care about working with local police because we want people that when they witness a crime or they're victims of a crime, they're not afraid to call the police department because they know the police department do not work for ICE. We work completely independent. I mean, so the Chelsea Police Department has taken very strong stance in basically saying that they would never do the role of, they would never be ICE or ICE agents, that there's a judicial system for that role. And that is why in Chelsea, people have a lot of trust within the police department. In other communities, people are afraid and they will not call the police if they're witness a crime or are victims of a crime. And although one thing that is hurting us tremendously now is that in the courts, you do have the presence of ICE in certain courts. So it's very difficult because, here we are working in a community that is a sanctuary city, working with the police department that is very responsive to the community needs. And when you go to the court, they may be an ICE agent there. So we are always but we have created a group of people that in solidarity, if you have a person who's undocumented, who was a victim of a crime that needs to go to court or whatever, we go with that person to build that solidarity so that they're not afraid, and we support them in that way, and that has worked for us.
Heather, you're having a conversation about organizing at some very prestigious colleges around Boston, and some people might be saying that's a whole world away from Chelsea and many of the neighborhoods in Boston. So why go to those colleges? Why is it important?
Well, first of all, we're having conversations about organizing in all sorts of communities, at some Ivy League universities, some community colleges, and in some communities themselves. It's one of the reasons that we are including wonderful organizers. She's the director now, a leader in her community and an organizer like Gladys, and people from other communities. In New York, we're going to have a conversation with Rashad Robinson, head of Color of Change, and also Christina Jimenez, who's head of United We Dream, so that it's appropriate in any kind of community, and we want all people involved. It's one of the reasons there's a film about my life in organizing that we've taken around to over 100 places in the country now, and it's now about to be on PBS. It's called Heather Booth, Changing the World, and it's designed to give people a sense that if you organize, you can change the world, but you need to support organizations and movements and get involved.
And finally, you've got a website with more details about that?
The film is www.heatherbooththefilm.com. There's also a website for Midwest Academy, which is the training center for organizers, and that's www.midwestacademy.com.
And Gladys Feger, you have a website and a lot of interesting services going on at the Collaborative, so how can people find that?
Yes, so they can go to www.chelseacollab.org, or they can call the 617-889-6080. And we have sort of like a variety of programs that we provide. We do housing, we do immigration, we do youth jobs, we do youth leadership development. We're very involved.
Thank you both, Gladys Feger and Heather
Thanks very
Booth.
much.
Thank you.